The sheriff also took time today to dispel rumors about a possible second shooter and says he knows and believes Stephen Paddock was the only person firing into the crowd that night.
There is an unnamed person of interest federal investigators are looking at tonight. While charges could be filed against that person, Metro says they won't be filing charges against Stephen Paddock's girlfriend, Marilou Danley.
13 Action News reporter Tom George has some information tonight that we're hearing for the first time about the woman who was closest to Stephen Paddock. Tom.
Well, Steve and Tricia, investigators have zeroed in on Marilou Danley from the beginning of this investigation, and they say that she has been cooperative. But while they still don't have a motive, they say she is shedding light on Stephen Paddock's mindset. What started as a seemingly happy relationship in the house they shared in Mesquite, according to Marilou Danley, seemed to change in the last year, telling investigators Paddock was becoming more distant and that their relationship was no longer intimate. He was also described as germophobic and had a strong reaction to smells. During that same time frame is when Danley said Paddock began buying firearms. She thought it was a hobby. And when her nephew visited the couple, he said everything seemed fine.
Didn't seem like he was the type of guy to do that. Seemed like he just looked after my auntie and that's it.
Danley would be out of the country in the Philippines during the attack, and Paddock wired her money, making her worried to relatives about a possible breakup until they learned what happened. Now, investigators also spoke with Stephen Paddock's personal physician. Coming up tonight at 6, what his doctor had to say about his possible mental state in the year leading up to the shooting. Reporting live, Tom George, 13 Action News.
Tom, thank you. And as we told you earlier, today's report included several photos from the crime scenes. Now, this shows the handwritten note that investigators say was left behind by Stephen Paddock. It included distance and bullet drop calculations.
There's also a lot of information in that 80-page report, which you can see in its entirety, along with a gallery of photos from the crime scene. Just go to KTNV.com. New at 5, the number of deaths blamed on the flu outbreak continues to climb. Tonight, the CDC says at least 10 more children have died from the flu, which is not good news for parents. 13 Action News anchor Leslie Marine has some advice from a local doctor to know if your child's flu could be turning into something that's life-threatening.
Source tells they're about 5 times busier right now than they would normally be. Take a look, the flu medication aisle, you can see a lot more empty shelves. But how do you know if you have the flu or something more serious?
Just a few weeks ago, little Piper was battling a terrible flu.
Her cheeks were extremely red. She had a fever.
Mother Jessica Russo says the symptoms so serious she worried if Piper would end up in the hospital.
I felt helpless, really.
That's the feeling of many parents across America right now, the flu infiltrating homes.
Our dispensing of Tamiflu is 5 times the rate it was last year at this time.
And in some cases, the medicine just doesn't help. The CDC now saying a total of 30 children have died from the flu this season alone.
So the average person is like, well, I don't want to sit home and watch somebody if they're dying, but I also don't want to panic if it's the flu. So there's ways to tell.
Dr. Dahlia Wax says the most common cause of the death from the flu is being misdiagnosed.
Then we're looking at either a secondary infection like pneumonia.
So here are the signs to look out for to tell if your flu could turn serious. First, if you don't have any digestive issues but still have a high fever. You're dehydrated and can't keep fluids down, or if you have a constant cough and chest pain.
Tell the doctor, look, I'm having fever, I'm having these symptoms. What if it's not the flu? What else could it be?
Although the vaccine's only 30% effective, that's more protection than if you did nothing at all. Reporting from Tropicana and Wallapai, Leslie Medine, 13 Action News.
And taking a live look at the valley where a slew of weather changes are on the way. Temperatures are expected to drop, winds will pick up, and there's even a chance for rain. Let's get over to 13 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Brian Schofield with what we can expect. Brian.
Yeah, you feel like those clouds are telling the story, but the rain's going to be hard pressed to get into the valley, but not impossible. That's why we've been talking more about wind and more about this being the last time you're going to see temperatures like this for a couple of days at least, let's say. Look at those nice mild readings. Some areas actually hitting the 70-degree mark today. Unbelievable, but that's ahead of a southwesterly flow that's getting stronger. Look at cloud cover, but no rain at this point, and we're seeing those winds pick up. We've had them pick up a little bit throughout the day, but much stronger wind on the way and colder air as well. And coming up in your 13 First Alert forecast, I'm going to show you which neighborhoods get hit first and when this will all scoot out of here as well. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Brian. Some live video now from Washington, D.C., where the Senate is scrambling to approve a temporary spending bill to prevent a government shutdown. Well, that's obviously not Washington, D.C., that's us, but we'll try to get that live video. We're told that, let's see, it's about 8 o'clock Eastern time right now. They have a vote set for 10 o'clock Eastern time. That'd be about 2 hours from now. The deadline, though, is midnight on the East Coast, which is 9 p.m. our time. If they can't get enough votes, a number of federal agencies will stop being funded. So tonight, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are blaming each other for the deadlock on spending and an immigration agreement.
What has been shoehorned into this discussion is an insistence that we deal with an illegal immigration issue.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer was summoned to the White House by the president to talk through a one-month government funding bill that's already passed the House, but with no provision for dreamers.
We made some progress, but we still have a good number of disagreements. The discussions will continue.
And the blame is going in both directions.
Mr. President, what are you doing to prevent this shutdown?
No response from the president to shouted questions in the Rose Garden. He and other Republicans say the Democrats are willing to shut down government services over 800,000 young immigrants. But Trump rejected the bipartisan Senate immigration deal on the table, tweeting this morning, Democrats want illegal immigration and weak borders. Shutdown coming? We need more Republican victories in 2018. A new ABC News poll shows 48% of Americans would blame the GOP for a shutdown versus Democrats. But we're also seeing a new CNN poll that says 56% of Americans said approving a budget agreement to avoid a shutdown is more important than continuing the DACA program, at least for now. But as the deadline looms, federal agencies are already on notice, being advised to review their contingency plans if that shutdown happens. Carla.
And this is just in. We now know that singer Tom Petty died of an accidental drug overdose. That is according to the coroner and his family, who say that he broke a hip and he had knee problems and he began taking several pain medications, including fentanyl. He died back on October 2nd of last year. He was 66. And also just in, the new autopsy report. This is on former Major League Baseball star Roy Halladay. It turns out that he had morphine, amphetamines, and sleeping pills in his system when he crashed his plane into the Gulf of Mexico last November. Tricia.
Wow. All right, Carla, thank you. Well, still to come tonight, shocking new video. It appears to show a man viciously beating his girlfriend. We'll show you why he probably wasn't expecting what happened next.
And a warning from Contact 13 about some wood-like splinters that are showing up in a certain brand of granola bars, but the company that makes them says they're still okay to eat.
And a big agreement reached today that will have an impact on the future of the UNLV football team.
Take a look at this video caught on camera. A man appears to be viciously beating a woman in the streets of Peru. You can see him throwing some punches before he drags her to the ground, but he wasn't expecting what happened next. Several other men quickly surround him and more punches start being thrown. Police finally showed up and ordered the man to leave. No one was arrested.
And we have some new video tonight. It's showing a home burglary in broad daylight right here in Las Vegas. The thieves taking off with jewelry.
Two men who appear to be carrying a gun break into a home in the northwest side of the valley. The homeowners were out of town. Take a look. You can see one of the suspects enters through the side gate when he reaches the backyard, meeting the other suspect. They then get into the house through a window, and you can see one here going through the family's bedrooms, gun in hand. Police are actively looking for these two, but coming up at 6, we'll tell you what the neighborhood is doing to catch thieves like these.
A consumer alert tonight from Contact 13. Quaker Oats touts the wholesome goodness of its oatmeal and granola bars, but many people want to know why objects that look and feel much like splinters sometimes wind up in their products.
So here's the granola bar she was eating.
Kathleen Kessler bought the chewy bars for her daughter.
And this is what she pulled out of her mouth.
This is what she pulled out of her mouth. After 1 or 2 bites, something sharp poked Nicole's mouth.
Anything could happen when you bite into something like that.
So there's the little splinters.
To the naked eye, the pointed pieces look and feel like skinny wood splinters.
I mean, wouldn't you think that was wood? Because it kind of looks like wood.
It does look like
splinters. And it actually feels a little bit like splinters.
We found other granola bar buyers who say the same thing happened to them. Facebook and consumer posts detail people finding Splinter lookalikes in Quaker granola bars and other brands.
Pulled it out and found pieces of splintered wood in my mouth. Seriously, splintered wood?
Quaker offered an explanation for the splinter-like objects. In a statement, the company says it looks like what was found is the tough outer coating of the grain, known as the hull. Any bits of hull that might remain are usually eliminated by screening procedures, but occasionally a hull will end up in a finished product. Quaker says the hulls, while they don't taste good, are safe to consume. But to the Kesslers, that explanation doesn't exactly inspire confidence in the product.
I think they're just trying to sweep it under the rug and pretend like nothing's going on.
New at 5, some new recommendations are coming out that would lead to some tougher new drunk driving laws. The proposal, based on a suggestion from a scientific panel commissioned by the government, calls for lowering the legal blood alcohol threshold from 0.08 to 0.05. Some experts say it would reduce the 10,000 drunk driving deaths each year in the U.S. 0.08 is the limit right now in every state except for Utah, where it already stands at 0.05.
The Nevada Board of Regents has approved a joint use agreement that allows the UNLV football team to use the stadium being built by the Raiders. The agreement is now expected to be reviewed at the Stadium Authority meeting next month. The Raiders plan to relocate to Las Vegas for the 2020 football season. If you would like to watch the stadium construction in real time, the Raiders are streaming it online. You can find that link on our website. Just go to KTNV.com.
It's pretty cool. Get ready for some more traffic trouble in the Spaghetti Bowl. NDOT is preparing for a series of nightly ramp closures in downtown Las Vegas. The 95 north to the I-15 northbound ramp connector will close January 24th and 25th from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. For a list of other trouble spots around the valley, just go to KTNV.com and click on the traffic tab.
Well, like a lot of families around the valley, a lot of sporting events this weekend, Brian, so we're looking to the skies to see what it's going to do.
Not looking good right now.
I know.
Well, yeah. Bigger changes on the way, and